Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for coming in. Last week we got, I believe, up to this point, and it's okay if you're not exactly as developed as we are here. The objective is for you guys to understand how to sort of window, how to sort of thicken up the walls to give them the anatomy of the exterior wall, how to strategically start to offset stuff inside of the home to get the interior partitions. I trust that once you can do one room or one door or one window, you know how to do 100, right? It's sort of the same thing. So you don't necessarily have to be as developed as this, but hopefully you understand this stuff. What I'd like to do today is to continue I'm just going to try to zoom in here, if it'll let me. Oh, wrong keyboard. Okay, there we go. So what I'd like to do today is focus on just giving you examples. I don't think it's going to help you guys if you see me do all of the text and all of the notation. I'm going to put everybody in here to sleep doing the same thing over and over again. So what I'll do is I'll show you how I would start, just the strategy of how I'd approach this. So how I would start to do the tags, let's say for the windows. Then you can copy the circular one and make it a tag for the doors. Apply that consistently throughout the drawing. How to do the room names with the room number and square areas and so forth. Just general strategies on how to add notations, so notes, which you've already done in the previous drawing, how to add dimensions, and then how to start tackling the charts on the side here. The lintel the schedules, window, door schedule, and so on. The deadline for this is listed as the 18th, so we have one more week, including this class, to get it done. I don't think we can take longer than that, because if we do, we start to take away from the time left for the remaining assignments. So we do need to knock this out in 1 week. So I'll show you everything you need this class to finish this assignment. I won't do all of these specific things, but I'll show you all of the skills you need to finish it. And then that still gives us one more session next week to get together where I don't really need to draft on the screen. I can just be available to help, sit with people and work through whatever issues you may be having to make sure you get it done. So that's the idea. With that in mind, I think a good place to start would be with the windows. They have two labels for the windows. One is in a rectangle. It says L7, and that stands for lintel 7. So, for instance, and you'll see that this repeats on some windows. So this window has an L7. This next one has an L7. That has an L10, so it's a different size window. It repeats again there. So if we go to the lintel schedule, lintel 7 is used in the following rooms. Its width is 1.575 meters. This is the makeup of it, and there are 3 windows in the project that use it. So that's what that L7 means. So it means because there's 3 windows that use it, it means L7 should appear 3 times in this drawing. So the lintels, as a result, are allowed to repeat. There we go. There's all 3 instances. 1, 2, 3. Now the circle is the name that we're going to assign the window, so that should be unique for every window. So in this case, this one is W110, 111, and so forth, 109 over on the left. Usually the nomenclature or the rules for naming that stuff, if it's the first floor, you give it a 3-digit number. If it's the first floor, it starts with a 1. So our windows here will be 101, 102, 103, all the way up to whatever it needs to be. Second floor will be 201, 202, and so on. Although we're not doing the second floor plan. If you were doing a multi-story building, you would go in that order. So third floor would be 301, 302, and so forth. Okay. One last thing before I jump in. The general text, if you look at it on the example drawing and you look at the name of the window, the W109, it's about the same size. So what I'm going to do to start is I'm going to go back to my drawing And I don't, do I have any text? I do. I have some text here. And so I'm going to copy that. Bring it to here. I can turn on caps lock and say W110. Now what I can also do is type explode so that I can then delete. I have the option of deleting this, and I just kind of capture the text. It should still be editable. Yes, it is. So W110. This looks quite small though. I'm not sure that's what I want. So I'm going to just play around here for a bit. Annotation. I think this drawing is 1 to 100. Let me check the scale on it. One to 50. Sorry. So let me try Arial 100 and see how that looks. That might be better. Let me just get it onto the notation layer. And so one way we could check this, we're not going to get too deep into scales, but just to sort of give you an idea. Usually for the smallest notes you want, the notes and all the dense text, you want it to print at about 2 millimeters high. That's about the height your eye can comfortably still see. That's a fine level of text. Like a fine is the lowest level. So 2 millimeters at a scale of 1 to 50. Anyone know what that is? So you're dividing everything by 50 basically. So when you draw something that's 100 millimeters and we divide it by 50, you get 2 millimeters, correct. So if I have text that is 100 millimeters high in model space here, when I bring it into paper space at 1 to 50, it would be exactly 2 millimeters high. So I'm just gonna, this is a very rough idea. It's just when I'm worried about how large the text is, I'll just really quickly check it this way. So I typed in DI and I'm just gonna measure it, and it's 101, whatever. So this is, it's just based on where my mouse is. I'm not snapping to anything, but this text we can be confident is 100 millimeters high. So that's correct. So what we had here before, the thing I copied, that's a different kind of text that maybe is meant for us to put in paper space, which we will get to later. But this is the right height. So this is what we want for our window. We need a circle around it. We're just going to eyeball the circle. Okay. Maybe move it a little bit, make it look like it's in the center. There we go. That's our window. And now I can copy it. And so what I could do is just copy it right now with the same text to every single window. And I'll just go around and I'll change. I'm just going to do one more up here. Okay. And so now I know that on this drawing, this bottom left corner one here is 109, 110, 111, and it should go up to, I guess, 113 or so, 114, 112, 13, 14. Okay, so I can go back to here, and I just start double clicking the text, and I can make it 109, 110, oops, wrong button, 111, $114. Okay, so we have all of that. or now that you know how to do those, I'll leave it at those 5 examples instead of doing every single window. And if I zoom in, I can see that the text for the lintels is about twice the height, 1.8 or twice the height, something like that. So I'm going to go back to here, and for this I had Arial 100, so it's 100 millimeters tall. I'm assuming that's what the name means. And here I have 200, so I'm going to switch to Arial 200. I'll say text, and I'm going to type, make sure caps lock is on, L7. And I'll just draw a rectangle around it. And now, just like with the other labels, I'm going to copy it to all the other instances of windows. And there's no right or wrong place to put this. You just want to basically indicate that it's associated with that window. So you want this to be somewhere near the window. Now we know that these 3 are L7, and I wonder what this one is called. L10. So I may not have been very foresightful here. I don't know if my rectangle is big enough. It's not. So I should have anticipated that. Sometimes you can just say, like, I'm going to select it here, type Control C, and then press Control V and paste it. So we've labeled our windows, and now we can do the same for our doors. It's a very similar process. So for instance, this door leading to the outside here is D108. So I'm simply going to grab one of these, copy it, paste it, and now type in D108. And then I can apply that further throughout the drawing if I want to. So, for instance, this kitchen door here is 105, this pantry door is 104. So I can type in copy. So this is 104, 105, yep.
Does where they're aligned in the door matter? Or
Not really, as long as it's inside. Usually keep it inside of the door,
inside?
like this. Now mine look a bit big, so what I might do is shrink this a little bit. And that's okay, but if I do, I would keep it consistent across. Ideally you want to keep it consistent across all of them. And I've only shrunk one here, so probably what I should do, to follow my own advice, I'm gonna just do that again. So I'll copy this one, 104, make this guy 105, and redo 108. And so we've only done 3 labels really. We did 2 for the windows, the lintel and the window name, and we did 1 for the door. But with that, we now have what we need to do our schedules. And so these schedules, a few things about schedules. Okay, if this was 5 years ago, we would go into detail how to do the schedule. It's called the Schedule Wizard in AutoCAD. And it's a whole 2-day lesson where I show you how to do special things called tags that are automatic labels for doors and windows, and then it automatically creates schedules for you. But if you want to do schedules, you have to go into detail how to do them. And so what we do is we in reality, you're probably gonna end up at an office that is only using Revit. You might end up at an office that is still kind of in the background using CAD, but they're gonna phase it out eventually. So the future looks like it's all Revit at this point. And so next year, you're gonna start Revit, and it makes sense to show you how to do automated schedules in Revit. So because we're just getting, this is, the reason we're doing one semester of CAD is really just to teach you the concepts of why certain things are on the page and what they mean. So, the two things about this I want to tell you. One is the concept of what it shows. Go over very quickly what they're trying to show you here. And two, I'll tell you the most efficient strategy for how we can draw this with the understanding that you're only going to need it for this semester. So Windows, for instance, here we have all of the unique names for all of our windows, all the way from 101 to 114. All of them are triple pane glass, so it has that bit of information about each one. It also shows you what room they appear in, so you may not always, like some you may have multiple windows in one room, so for instance here you have 112 3 times. And then it indicates their size, which is interesting. I guess it's only showing you their horizontal size. I'm not sure why they don't include that one bit of information, but that's okay. It gives you their rough opening as the width. So we have that for windows. Doors, we have a similar thing here. We have the door name, which is unique. The type of door is, so usually if it says hollow core, wood door, or wood sliding door, something like that, that's going to be an interior door. Usually for exterior doors, they have to be insulated. So every time you have exterior metal insulated, that's usually a good indication this is a door needing to be outside. It also shows the room number and the width. I guess the reason they're giving us the width is they want us to know how wide we have to draw it in the drawing. It doesn't give us the height as well for that reason. Lintel schedule also gives you some information, so it gives the count, how many of this specific type of lintel appear. Here it gives you the description, so 2 2x4s, 38 by 89, so 2 2x4s stuck together, all the way down to much larger 2x6s and other pieces of wood for bigger lintels, and again, similar information. So conceptually, that's what it is. In terms of drawing it, this is how I would go about it. So I would grab the two sizes of text we have and just copy them over to the side, and we'll position the schedules later on paper space where we need it to be. So I would just generally draw it to the right of the drawing, and we'll worry about the positioning at a later time. And so let's say we're going with the first schedule here, so window schedule. I'm going to type window schedule, stretch this out to give it enough to be on a single line. There we go. And before I draw any frames and lines and stuff around it, I'm just going to start throwing the text down, the first 2 lines or so. So here I'm going to change this to NO period for a number. Okay. Copy paste a few more. Actually, maybe I should probably start to line these up on the same line at least. Sorry, copy. How many bits of info do we have? Type, room number, size, room no size. Okay, and then I'll just type in the first line before I get going, before I try to copy or populate more lines of this chart. See here it starts to overlap a bit, so this is where I can make a decision to move stuff over. And that's why I haven't done all of the rows yet. I just want to get these first sort of adjustments out of the way before I multiply it. And so now what I can do is I guess copy this line down. I'm going to try to keep it pretty tight. And now I need 1, 2, 3, well, basically 14 lines minus 1, so 13 copies of that. And so now what I could do, I think, is just grab this and sort of leapfrog it like we did before with the bricks. 2, 3, 4. If I get tired and I don't want to do all 14, probably do something like this and go by 4s. So 8, 12, and I think I need one more. So drop that guy into there. And then I just go systematically through it. So 102, 103, all the way down to 114. They're all triple pane glass, so I don't need to worry too much about that. It looks like these guys are also 102 and 103, although that will not always be the case. Sometimes the room names will be identical because you'll have more than one window in it. 800, 2340. So modify the size. Okay, and then I can start to put my vertical lines in and actually start to do the finishing touches. And to keep all the vertical lines the same length, I can just kind of copy the same one a couple of times. I think I have too much on the side here, so I'm just going to trim that. Okay. Copy that one more time. Extend the outside ones. That looks pretty much it. Theirs is a little wider. They're a little bit more generous in their horizontal spacing, I think. And you can be too. But that's how I would approach this, the idea of doing these schedules. So, we've got our tags down. I'll show you quickly how to do one tag for a room, which is kind of a similar exercise to this. And then we can start to, then you kind of have a general idea of how to do everything else. You'll still have to do a bit of work in terms of putting the dimension lines, as you can see here. So they have dimensions that are running from, let's say, the interior of the wall, and they try to catch certain partitions and stuff to give you an idea how to lay the space out. We'll do a little bit of electrical. That's a new thing that we haven't touched before. I'll show you that very quickly. And that's about all I think you need to do in terms of the typology of stuff. That's all you have to worry about. So kitchen, room 108. Let's try that. Again, we're going to use these same text sizes. So it looks like the room name occurs in the larger text size. So kitchen, and notice what I'm doing here. I'm not really redoing stuff from scratch. I'm copying a lot. I've already done, I've made these decisions before. There's no point taking up your time with it again. We've made the decision on how big that text type should be. It's occurring here again. It looks like it occurs on these two. It's the same text type. This looks like it's the small one. So if you've already made these decisions, don't need to take up your time with it again. You can just copy what you have. Now there is, sorry, I'm just going to type this in, 14.4 meters squared, because some of you may have a question here. Do I type in the area that the drawing tells me, or do I measure the area of the room and put that in? And I'm going to make a strategic decision here as a teacher this year, and I'm going to say, just give me the area that it gives you. But I want you to be aware there is a way to measure areas in AutoCAD. So for instance, and this would be important, I would go through the time to teach you how to do this if you were going to use AutoCAD in your career. But again, it's more advantageous for you guys to learn how to do it in Revit, where it happens basically automatically. So the way I could find, and you'll have this in the video if you want to mimic it, the way I could find the area of this room, rather than calculating everything out and dimensioning it, I can go to Polyline, and what I can do is outline the room. So I'm just going to start, I started in that corner, I'm going to outline the room, and I get to the last thing. I can either click there, but a better way to do it is right click and say close. Now I have an enclosed shape that I can select, and then I can right click and say properties, and here at the bottom it's going to give me the area. Now the area is going to look like an insanely big number. It's going to look, basically I have 14,630 square millimeters. That's because it's giving it to me in square millimeters. So you will probably quickly realize that there's 1,000,000 square millimeters in 1 square meter. So really what it's telling us is that our room is 14.6 meters squared. There's a little calculator tool here that you could take the time if you want to learn how to use this. It's fairly simple, and it'll do the conversion for you, but you can probably do it faster in your head. And this is an example, if you're wondering, like, why the heck are there so many steps to this? Why is this so complicated? This is one of the reasons why CAD is clunky and Revit is not, and why you're going to be switching to Revit next semester. So it's important that you know these concepts exist, but you don't necessarily have to know how to use every one of these nuanced tools. In Revit, it will happen for you much easier. But again, I just want you to know these concepts exist. In case you do encounter it in a workplace, you at least know what you're trying to achieve and how you're going to try to achieve it. Okay, so we've done a room tag. I trust you'll be able to do the notes and the dimensions. Now, we have a few things. Let's look at something like a sink, or here we have a stovetop with 4 burners and a bar for the oven. There is some more detail in some of these than you need to have. If it is a sink, you can show a large rectangle, the area of the sink. If you want, you can show 1 or 2, however many wash basins you have in that sink. You can show them with a chamfered corner. So you use the same fillet button we used before, but instead of typing radius 0, type in radius 50 or radius 100, and it'll give you rounded corners. And then you can show a faucet. You don't have to go to showing me the grading of the mesh that goes into the drain of the sink. You don't have to show me the detail of each burner. You can just show circles and so on, and insert stuff like that. Washers, wire, like they did there, you can just outline them as rectangles. On your computers, I don't know if I have it on mine, you may be able to insert blocks from libraries. And I don't think I have it here, but if you guys do that on your computer, if you search blocks and inserting blocks and stuff like that, you may find instances of people that have already done a sink and a counter and a dishwasher and so on, and you just kind of insert them very easily. You can go online and download them. You don't have to draw this stuff from scratch yourself, although you can. So just letting you know that exists. But otherwise, just give me the main rectangles in it, show the burners, and that's about it. And you will understand that that's a sink and that's a stove and so forth. The last thing you may be unfamiliar with are these stuff like this. We'll go through the electrical. So we have a little symbol here, a circle with 2 lines through it, and it says GFI 1100 AFF. Does anyone have any idea what that might be? It's an outlet. So these are called duplex outlets. When you have, don't ask me how these symbols emerged. I don't know, but if you need to find what they look like, you can go here and under your charts. By the way, for your drawing, please also, I know this is, I hate to ask you for this, but I do have to give you a mark for it. Please write out the general notes as well. I don't know why, but I'm obligated to give you a mark for it, so please just be aware of that. So this is I think this is sort of the legend. Most of it, I think, is dedicated to electrical devices. So from the top, right about to here, carbon monoxide detector, the rest of it is just plain limitation. So if you look here, this is a duplex convenience outlet. Duplex outlet means a double plug, okay? 2 plugs. You can have a quadruple outlet, and I think then they just add an extra line through it or something. There's always a legend somewhere that tells you what it is. Now these things are good to know, these abbreviations, okay? Anyone know what GFI means?
Ground.
Yeah, ground fault. I thought it was ground floor interrupt, but ground fault interrupt sounds more correct. Basically, it means that sometimes what can happen is if you're near water, so water can get into there, it shorts it, it connects the two to the positive and negative, and it can create dangerous situations where it can give you a shock if you happen to be touching it at that time. So if you are within, I think it's 1 point something, I'll look it up and get back to you. It's 1 meter or slightly larger than a meter. If you are close to water, you do a GFI outlet. So all bathrooms and kitchens around a mud sink or laundry, all GFI outlets, ground fault interrupt. And that means that if water gets in, it turns off right away. It flips the breaker, there's a little breaker inside, a little reset button, and that turns it back on. So ground fault interrupt and 1100 AFF. Any idea what AFF stands for? I don't expect you to know, but if you want to take a guess, go for it. Above finished floor. So it tells you how high it is. So 1.1 meters, that's above counter height, which would make sense because you're in a kitchen, that is a counter, so it's above the counter. Usually you would have them at about 400 millimeters, but you know, there's no hard and fast rule. You can customize this, especially in a house. So these things, these symbols, that's what they mean. If we wanted to draw it, we would go to here, switch to electrical. Do we have electrical? We should. Usually it's yellow, but I don't see it here. Glazing roof wall, beam. I don't see it here. Okay, so I'm going to stay on notation. That's fine. And so you can develop your own symbol just by eye. It looks like it's, 1/3 or so the height of our door symbol. Something like that. Maybe a little smaller. Okay. 2 lines going through it. I'm going to mirror it over the center point just to make it consistent. Good enough. If yours looks a little bit different, that's okay. This is more about understanding the concept than getting a very specifically correct symbol. As long as your symbols are consistent and approximately the same size, you're good to go. So there's our note for it. Okay? And now once you know how to do one, you can kind of do all of them. The last thing that you probably aren't familiar with is what the heck are these circles with these dashed lines, these arc dashed lines connecting them to stuff. So this $ symbol is a symbol for a light switch. Sometimes they'll show $2 signs, that's like a double light switch, and so on and so forth. These circles represent pot lights, and the dashed lines between them, often people interpret that as that's where the wires go. Really what you're trying to communicate to the electricians is this is the circuit I want it on. When you hit this light switch, I want this light, or these 3 lights, or whatever, these 10 lights to turn on. The electricians will then wire it differently, and that's okay. They will wire some of the outlets to the light switch. The light switch will also have the wires will flow through the light switch and also connect some of the lights. So there may be more devices and more varieties of devices on the same circuit, but at the end of the day, as long as that light switch turns on those lights, and as long as those receptacles work, regardless of the switch being on and off, as long as it performs the way you want, that's what you care about. So what you're demonstrating to the electricians here is not where the wires will go, but what you want connected on the same circuit. So what I would do here is grab my text. Where's that light switch? It's over here. So I would come in here, do a $ symbol, probably rotate it 90 degrees. Okay. Drop it where I want it to go. My area, I was just demonstrating that, so I'm going to knock that out. Now for your lights, you can kind of take a guess. How big is a pot light? I don't know, maybe this big. So 15 centimeters across. So I'm going to punch in the radius, 75 millimeters. That's my pot light. I might offset it by another 10 millimeters as some sort of a perimeter or rim or something the pot light might have, maybe a bit bigger, maybe 20. Okay. And they have one in the middle of this doorway and one in the middle of the kitchen sink. And you can measure this and place them the way you would like, or you can kind of eyeball it. I would keep it in line though, and you know what, maybe what I will do is I'll line it up with that window, the middle of that window. So it means I'm going to have to move my text a little bit because it's getting in the way. So I'm going to grab this, move it a little bit lower. Now, for these arced lines, what you can do is there's an arc up here, a button, and if you click it, you have a whole bunch of different options, but I would pick 3-point. I think that gives you the most flexibility, and you click on one light, go to the other light, and then the third one kind of lets you give it, how much of a arc you want it to have. Just the purpose of the arcs, I would say, think of it like this, is to distinguish these lines from the straight lines in the drawing. By connecting it with sort of this spaghetti type of lines, it becomes sort of geometrically distinct from all of the orthogonal lines. And then you say, oh, okay, that's the electrical. The stuff that's a little bit more curved is electrical. Now, if you want to do a complex, so here what we have is sort of, they used an arc, but sometimes you're going to need to do something that you can't do with an arc. So for instance, for ours, I think we're going to want to go like that. And I'll show you what I think is an easier way to achieve that. So I'm going to grab a polyline, and I'm just going to kind of draw roughly what I want my arc to look like. And then I'll click on it, right click, and I think in here it says curve fit, and it'll do that. It'll turn into a curve for you. Okay, if you forget how to do that, don't worry, this will be uploaded as a video. And now the last thing I need to do is give this a dashed line, which I think we've already loaded from the previous drawing, so you should have it in your drawings. Line type, dashed, and it's just a really fine dash, so I'm going to type LTS for line type scale. Did it work? It's 1. I'm going to make it, let's say, 20. It's a bit much. Let's make it 10. And I'm going to match this line type to that line type. And it didn't work. Why not? That's odd. It can't do it if it's a curve fit. So it doesn't seem to like the spline fit. So what I showed you before is maybe not the best way of doing it. If you want to make it dashed. So let's do it with arcs instead. So one like this, maybe another one like that. And then a third one to here. And there we go. So that kind of gives you the rest of the tools you need to finish the drawing. I know it looks like a lot. I would start by drawing the rest of the walls and doors if you haven't. Then I would focus on the windows, the door labels, the room tags. Then I would focus on dimensions. There's quite a few of those, and once you get some of them, I would organize it in a way that, for instance, this dimension line going down the middle of the hallway, draw yourself a line and just align every dimension to that. It'll make the life a bit easier. And then you can kind of start filling in the last, little bits of info, the electrical stuff, the dashed lines, things of that nature. And it's going to take an hour or two to do all those little nuanced things, but there's no other way around it, unfortunately. You just have to methodologically slowly go and populate the drawing with that. Okay, I'm going to stop it at that, and if you guys need any help, just let me know, please.